Hey, welcome to Critters in Taiwan, a D&D podcast about Critical Role, where a bunch of nerdy-ass voice actors sit around and play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm Ben in Kaohsiung.
I'm Tim in Taichung.
And we are Critters in Taiwan. Today, we're going to be talking about all things Critical Role, but probably mostly about episode 15, The Tunnels Below.
Is that what they called it?
That's what they called it. Yep. Yeah, this was a bit of a dungeon crawl. Well, the second half was a bit of a dungeon crawl. First half was mostly RP. It's good.
Yeah,
it was a good episode overall.
Yeah.
The quick little no spoilers.
Oh, yeah,
well,
we gotta do the house cleaning first. Yeah,
right. All spoilers, everything. If you're not caught up, go get caught up and then come back. Language, there will be some, mostly English, maybe some French, maybe some Marquesian. Apparently, some of us speak Marquesian. But yeah, spoilers stuff, all language, spoilers, yeah. Vulgarities, all that stuff.
Yeah, and it's spoilers about everything Critical Role based. You know, campaign 1, campaign 2, spinoffs, all the shit.
Yeah, EXU and beyond and beyond and beyond, everything. Listen, man, let's get right into this. I loved this episode. Thought it was great. I thought it was really good. Good combination. You know me, I love combat. So the second half of this 5-hour episode was all combat. I loved it. It was great.
It was great.
The RP was good. The flow was good. I have a couple of comments about that later on. But one thing, just right off the hop, this is their first episode, 15 in with the core 8. So Robbie is gone.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And this was just the core 8 of them. And I mean, listen, this is one of my points, but I'm just going to throw it out there right now. The vibe was noticeably different. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but
interesting.
I noticed they were I don't know, maybe I'm projecting, maybe a bit, but it felt like they were going back to the old days of when it was just the 8 of them sitting around, and there was sort of it felt very loosey-goosey. It felt very the good, like really good interaction. They were there was a lot of cross table talk, and a lot of happiness and jokes and fun stuff. Not that there wasn't when Robbie is there, but I felt like there was more of it. It just felt like they weren't trying to impress anybody. I don't know. Again, probably I'm projecting on that one, but
I'll have to watch it again to see if I notice anything like that.
Again.
But now that you mention it, yeah, it did seem like I've got a couple of points here about some of the not loosey-goosey. Well, yeah. Like how they, they're just a bunch of friends hanging out, and the cameras kind of disappear for a bit, except for crosstalk.
Well, you could really feel it.
I mean,
I really felt it for this episode that they really were letting go, and they were really throwing out there as just, hey, this is just us sitting around playing D&D and having a really good time with a bunch of friends. And again, not that Robbie isn't a friend, because I have a sneaky feeling he is going to come back up to the table at some point. But I think it felt like this was a little bit of a reset, and now they're actually going to start this campaign. Clearly, there are going to be more guests. And again, Robbie may come back. Who knows? But it felt like they were back to their normal stuff.
Interesting thing
in a good way.
Guests, yeah. Like other guests who they might have, guests that we wanted, and returning guests, etc.
Yeah. Listen, if we're gonna talk about guests, did you watch that one shot, the Elden Ring one shot yet?
I watched a bit of it, but then I turned it off because I started playing it, and I didn't want to spoil anything. Right. So there might have been regions or simple things. You know me with spoilers.
I do.
So I watched a bit, and then I pieced out.
Yeah, I won't spoil anything because I don't play the game. I have no idea. But I watched the whole thing, and I really, really, really want to see Brendan Lee Mulligan come back again. Oh. He is excellent. He's amazing. I've been watching him for the other stuff that he's doing, and I've watched bits and pieces of one shots, and I've watched parts of his campaign and things. I want to see him come and have a guest spot at the table. He'll be very, very good. I'm very excited about that.
Can't wait to watch it. I got to get a few more hours in, maybe another 10 or 20 hours in before I check that one out. But it's nice to have that content, waiting for me.
I don't feel hell yeah. I don't know if there's a lot of spoilers. Maybe there are. I don't know. It's possible. No idea.
Just words and names and shit like that, stuff like that. Like when I'm still pretty new.
It felt very much in that respect. It felt very much like a bunch of them had played the game, and then beat the game, or whatever that even means, like played the thing, beat it, and then here's the thing, they probably got it well ahead of everyone else. I'm guessing. I'm throwing that out there. I am based on absolutely no evidence, just my own personal feeling that they may have got an advanced copy, played it for a couple of weeks, and then did put the one shot together in timing for the actual release of the game.
They are sponsored,
Yeah, exactly.
What better way to,
right. So if the creators of Elden Ring, if they really wanted them to do a fun, like a positive spin on it, and it would, not that there's anything bad about that game. Apparently by your own words, it's the best game ever. And actually, friends of mine here in Kaohsiung that are playing it are also agreeing with that. They're echoing that sentiment.
It's so fucking good.
So yeah, exactly. So I think if they wanted to do it justice, they probably did get an advanced copy and did put something together well in advance. Just my own personal thoughts. I don't know if that's true. I just bet it is.
Yeah, I'm not playing it right now, but that's about it.
Right.
I guess I got work and I got the gym, but
work,
and then podcast,
sleep,
and then
eat.
Yeah. Other than that, at this
Elden
point.
Ring.
Yep. And I think this weekend I get absolutely jack shit going on, so I think I really do get to turn off the phone and go ham on it.
I got
so good.
I got a big event on Saturday, but that's a whole other story. Hey, let's one other thing. Can I before we do rollies, can I throw one more thing out there?
Do what you got to do, buddy.
Just a little observation based on what I said before. No Robbie this week. Did you watch the intro this week?
Did they take him out?
Yep.
They did, didn't they?
Yep. They did.
What did they put in there instead? What did they extend?
They put Taliesin in his place. The exact same scene, but with Taliesin. Interesting little choice. It was the same line and the hero, but it's with Taliesin. And the renegade, and the renegade,
right.
And it's Taliesin in Robbie's spot. Just a little observation.
Huh? I can't believe I didn't see that. Yeah. I guess I'll just listen to it and go about it. But I'm gonna have to check it out now when I get back.
Yep.
When I get back to the old balcony.
So yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to do before rollies, because I thought it was kind of a funny, interesting little choice. Like, just that it's not like they're wiping the slate with Robbie. It's like, no, you're done. You're gone. You're done. You're dead to us.
Poor guy.
But it is very much like he's not part of the main cast. So in a way, I'm really happy to see that they're really leaning into the whole thing. Oh no, you're a valued guest. 14 episodes, man. That's more than any other guest has ever had. Way more. Probably 12 more than 10 more than any other guest. Like Will Friedle.
Yeah, there's Will Friedle and there's Mary.
They had a few in campaign
collective,
one.
Like, I don't think they came back to back.
No,
unless they did a couple. Did that?
They did a couple. Then they did the very last one because they showed up in the 114, the battle with Vecna.
Yeah,
and then
and maybe they died. Else? You don't know.
No,
I mean, we know.
Who was the other guy? Damn it, there was another guy that came for a couple.
Rafus came back,
but
2 or 3 times.
Right, he came back, but again, not more than 4 times.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say Robbie probably had 10 more than anybody else.
Yeah, and if you include EXU, it's not Critical Role, but same world, but he was there for those 8 episodes, coming back for the future 2.
Yeah.
The 2 shot coming up soon.
That's right. So that's well, I mean, if you consider EXU part of Exandria, it is Critical Role. So it's 14 plus 8. That's 22 episodes, man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a big chunk, plus 2 more potentially. 24 episodes. That's big.
That's 1 per hour in a day if you didn't do that math right.
Sure. Let's do rollies. You ready?
This is what you see. If we did this in the morning, it'd be totally different conversations. Yeah, rollies. Here we go.
We go.
Ooh, 16, motherfucker.
2.
Hey, I won't waste that 16 on that goddamn 2.
All you.
All right, I'm just gonna go straight from the top.
Go.
A bit of a Chris Farley moment when Matt does the big ass fucking goat sound.
Mm,
It was like Laura said it best.
mm.
She's like, that's maybe the best thing you've ever done. Like not
Yeah.
sound or anything. She's like the
Nope.
best thing
Nope.
I've heard you do or
The,
something
the
like that.
the beefy goat.
The beefy goat. And the thing is, like, making a goat sound itself is tough enough. But he was talking about how these goats are a little bit different and they're like, bulkier and they're.
Yeah,
And like
the
you kind of.
sill goat, right? They're actually different species of goat. They're the big ones. They
Oh, okay.
reminded me of the remember in Uthadern when they met the glass blades in campaign 2.
I remember they were talking about big goats.
And
like,
those big goats. I kind of looked it up because like the sill goat, and I don't remember the name of those goats, but these sill goats are different. They're
Okay.
great big jacked goats, yoked goats.
They're yoked.
Yoked.
Yeah, I love the so like he's sitting there and then like he's just describing them a little bit and like how they're maybe rougher, tougher or something, and I think the goat kind of nudges another goat and then he makes that fucking sound, that impossible sound. Everybody loses it. The goat doesn't exist in real life. Matthew made a sound that nobody's ever gonna make before because it's a big yoked fucking goat, not a regular goat. And it's just so specific and he nailed it, of course. I mean,
Of course.
anything he did was going to nail it.
Of course. Because it's well, let's be honest here. He could have done anything and it'd be like, oh, of course that's what a yoked goat sounds like.
Yeah.
Because of that's the wizardry that he has. He is a fucking wizard. He multi-classes as a bard and a wizard. Like the bard in him allows him to do all the voice acting.
His
And then
favorite class.
that insane
Yep.
intelligence that he has is the wizard in him, like the magic that he creates.
Yeah.
So the world that he creates, he describes the goat. So you've got it in your mind. It's fucking hypnosis, man. He describes it to you. You get it in your mind, and then he makes the noise, or he says and he does it with everybody. He describes Victor, and then he comes up with that insane voice from that gunpowder monkey, and then you're like, holy fuck, of course that's what Victor sounds like. So of course this is what a yoked goat sounds like. It sounds like the sound he made. It's wizardry.
I must have watched him
Fucking
do it
wizardry.
like 8-12 times the first time through, and I was just as surprised as anybody at the table, just because I watch in tandem with I have it on my phone and then I have my iPad over here, so I'm watching here and I'm just like, what the fuck was that? Do it again out of nowhere. He's done it a number of times, but this is just another one of those like, remember that? It's fucking awesome. Very specific character to like a
little moment. Yeah,
like
sure,
whatever the fuck.
sure.
It's not like he's like, oh. It was perfect.
A beefy goat.
Like it all of a sudden
crazy.
exists in my brain now because of that sound you just made.
Yep.
So good.
Well,
so
again,
good.
like I said, that's the wizardry. He describes it, and then he makes a sound, and you're instantly associating. Of course, that's what a beefy goat will sound like.
I think everybody at the table was like that too. They're like, yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah,
A goat's like,
that
hey,
checks.
you're here. Okay, yep.
Normal goat up here, beefy goat down here.
Matthew's goat. Yeah, that's my first quick
great.
one.
Nice. I got another quick one. It's actually in the same vein, but it's like the same sort of remember when this happened? That was awesome. The conversation that comes right out of that when they're talking about where Chetney, they're sitting at the table. This is at the beginning of the episode, and they're sitting at the table. And I realized that Chetney is the only one that's checking Fern's bullshit. The rest of them are sort of letting it happen, and they're smiling and nodding and going along with it. But Chetney is the only one that's sort of checking it, where he's like questioning in that crotchety old, it's a character thing, right? He's a crotchety old man. He's a grumpy old man that's sort of checking everything. But then when he asks, does anybody have any knowledge of geology? And Fern's like, well, of course I do. Of course I know about geology. I know all about the mountains. And they're like, then that discussion about how the the spires or a hand, which I thought was a fucking amazing thing. I've thought about that before because there's 5 spires, but then Matt was, you could see the look on Matt's face, and then they were talking about it, and Matt was like, or Liam said something about how I always thought it was just a relic of the calamity, and then Matt confirmed that by saying it used to be one big mountain that was shattered into 5 pieces. So it's like, oh, that would have been fucking amazing if it was a Titan underground and this was his hand sticking up. But
all right.
sorry. But what came out of that was when FCG started talking about how he was a man-made mountain denier and he's a flat Exandrian and
creationist as well. Yep.
What happened is that I wrote this down because I was giggling like a little schoolgirl. It was amazing because Chetney says, as Fern would tell you, goats evolved into horses. So it's really like going back in time. Mm-hmm. And then Orem says, yeah, 6,000 years ago at the start of the world. And then FCG, I believe we all came out just like this. There was no such thing as evolution. And then the whole creationist thing. And meanwhile, if you're watching Matt, he's just doing this. Yeah. His hand he's just like a solid 30 seconds of, oh God, what have I done?
He's vocal about it too. It's like,
very much. Because these guys have been very, very vocal as actors in Hollywood, as not to get too deep into the weeds on that one, but as most Hollywood actors are, they're very left-wing, liberal, pro, whatever. I'm not going to get into these things, but clearly, when you go down this path of being flat earther and climate denier and creationist and et cetera, and I love how Ashley, in character, started saying, "Well, no, that's not the case. Evolution is real." And then they all sort of looked at her.
Most everything else, it's not.
Well, then they all started looking at Ashley, and Liam was like, "There's a pantheon of gods. Yeah. They created everything."
Was that me, Liam? I thought that was Matthew that said that. He's like,
they both sort of said it. And then Matt reached into his nose and flicked a booger down onto the realm, and it was like, right, this is where humans come from, or where life comes from, or whatever.
I should have been watching that part. I was just listening.
There was a whole fucking dynamic where Ashley was so into her own head that she lost where she was. It was beautiful. Yeah. It was this beautiful, wonderful evolution, ridiculous goat moment and then Ashley Fern being a satyr. It's like, you're half goat. Like, where did you come from? There's no evolution involved with that. It's just, this is, but she was trying to argue for it. I loved it. Loved that moment. Yeah. It was just a wonderful thing where she was getting so immersed, and a bunch of the word, Sam was fully into his role as a created character. Like this, he's clearly been built. He's a robot. He's an automaton. So he's full on creationist. Of course he is. It makes no sense that there would ever be anything to do with evolution. This whole dynamic that was happening at the table in that 5 minutes was amazing.
So fun to watch. So fun to listen to. It came up again later too. I don't with the mountains. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in man-made mountains or whatever.
Right.
FCG said.
Yes.
And I think Ashley still doing Fern's voice pretty much, but then eventually was like, time. "Oh, but I won't talk about that." And be like, "Ashley, check yourself a little bit. We don't want to do politics or religion right now. We're playing a game." She's like, "Oh, God, you're right. Fuck."
Yeah,
of course, Sam's gonna push
like you said, that the goat moment and the evolution moment versus creationism versus flat Exandrian. That whole idea, that whole thing was just brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant.
It was wonderful.
Loved it. Rollies.
Roll it is.
Okay. 1-0 for you.
14.
I'm going to beat that. 19.
Ooh.
All right. Here's where I've got a problem. I have a couple of problems with this episode. This one is not so technical, but my next one is very technical. But I have a couple of problems with this episode.
Hold on. I don't have one. Just go ahead.
Okay. So they leave Eshtaros Manor. At the beginning of this episode, about a half an hour, 45 minutes into the episode, they leave. And they're about to find a way to travel to wherever I don't even know where they're going. The somewhere in the Hellcatch Valley, somewhere. I don't even know where the
tunnels
the forest is.
I kind of missed
they're
that
about to go. Right. So this is where I have the problem. I have a sneaky feeling Matt didn't want them to go there yet.
Oh,
I think
this is interesting, folks.
Yeah, I think Matt was going to let them explore this, but then was like, no, we're going to finish this arc first with the shade creepers and the shit under the city and in the spires. He wants to finish this first. I feel there was a little bit of shenanigans here. I feel why? he railroaded them. I really believe he did.
This was Ollie and
Gus showing up. Exactly.
Flanking them. They were questioning them.
Yeah, they were staking out the mansion where they left. And then Matt even says a little bit later, he's like, well, they missed Cyrus and Dorian leaving, but they were watching for you guys. And I'm like, well, okay, listen, I'm a little bit of a cynic sometimes. I'm also a little bit of a realist, and I'm an optimist sometimes too, but there's more realism in this one. I just smell railroading. And he wasn't ready for them to take off out of Dressar yet. He wants to keep them in the city for a little bit longer. And conveniently, Gus and Ollie, the Green Seekers, they show up. And listen, I have no problem with this because I think it's a legitimate DM tactic. I think it's a good one. I think I like 2 thumbs up for it.
Part of the game.
It's part of the game. I love it. But I believe this wasn't coincidence. I think this was planned. He didn't want them to leave. He gave them every option to leave, and they were fully intending to, but he didn't let it happen. And there's nothing wrong with that because the world is not static. It is kinetic. It's always moving in all different parts. So these, of course, the Green Seekers are still looking for Cyrus, and mostly Cyrus, but also in accordance with Dorian. The problem is they never get brought up when they're sitting at that park bench and they're talking about where Gus cast the Dome of Silence, and then they start asking him questions about it. It never goes anywhere. As soon as they start talking about the Shade Creepers and the Jelly People and whatever, they never bring up Dorian and Cyrus again.
They don't. They just keep saying things like, it's kind of funny that people that kind of look like you were kind of in this place over here. And
right. So I was like, when Gus and Ollie first started flanking them and they started, I'm like, and
kind of corralled them. And like that was his
all
words.
All the puzzle pieces started falling into place. I'm like, he's railroading. He's not finished with. They want to leave, but Matt doesn't want them to leave yet. I mean, listen, Matt. All respect to him, he is never, ever going to take player agency away. If they had pressed the issue and said, no, we're going to leave and we're going to go, he 100% would have allowed that to happen. And absolutely prepared for that also. But I think he didn't want it to. I think he clearly had other things in mind that he would prefer to see other than them leaving Dressar. Just
not
have my own personal thing.
Dorian and Cyrus come up. I didn't really think about that because maybe that's because Matt did such a good job just saying things like they had so many things. They're like, oh yeah, and you stayed at Estrosh's place last night. Pretty chummy, he went pretty far with the old
absolutely
the good cop bad cop thing, but it's just him, they're like, oh, they're just out for a stroll. What do you think about that, Gus? I'm like, oh yeah, just a little stroll out in the town, all right. And then Orem was the one that said, he was like, Jersey. Is there an accusation coming or and I'm like,
I was waiting I was waiting for Orem to sort of draw his sword and be like, are we doing this? What are we doing? Yeah, I was sort of waiting for that moment because that's how Liam is playing Orem, and it's very good. I like it.
Yeah, maybe cool. That was his little like pre-pulling the sword moment. It was like,
you got to remember,
like, be cool.
The Green Seekers were originally brought into this whole mix because they're looking for Cyrus. That was the whole thing, and it never got brought up again. Like they go down into the mines and they do a whole bunch of other stuff after this. And we don't know what's going to happen next episode or the episode after. Maybe it gets brought up again. It might.
Maybe they're bad at their job, Yeah,
maybe
they're not the best detective agency,
man. That was what a wonderful, wonderful little thing that Sam and Laura did, eh? Really, with the green cloaks. Did you get that? Traveler, the traveler with the green cloak.
I didn't pick up on that.
So there's the green. I was like, oh, Green Cloaks. Because I full on, I was like, wait a minute, hang on. Because then they started talking. I'm like, Green Cloaks, are they a division? Have they been created? And be honest with you, I went on.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah.
It's not that far in the future, though.
It's not. That's the problem. So I went online and I was like, wait a minute, this, and then it doesn't add up. It's 7 years after the Mighty Nine, and Gus and Ollie say that they've been operating together for 20 years. Right. So it doesn't, none of it adds up, but it was for a minute, for a good hot minute. I was like, oh, is that it? Is that? And then completely dashed. Yeah. Good red herring.
Completely missed me. Yeah.
Yep.
Jeez.
Well, that's mine.
Every time we do this, I got to rewatch it again. I'm pretty sure I'm going to finish the first campaign and then go back into the campaign 3. Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm sure, just like the other 2 campaigns, there's going to be so much shit that I didn't pick up.
Oh, absolutely.
The first time through, especially this one, because I've been primed. So I'll go ahead and let this be my counterpoint, because I've been primed, and the first 2 to like I know the people, I know I know the actors, and and I know Matt a hell of a lot more than I did back then. So and they're also much better at the rules and shit like that too, right? So I've said this before.
I could talk for days about how much better they are at the rules now.
Oh yeah,
I could talk for hours about it, hours and hours. They're just they still make mistakes. Listen, man, I've been playing this game for years and years and years and years too. I still make mistakes at the table all the time. It's part of the time. It's just natural. It's part of the game. That's what you do. But they're so much better.
So much better, yeah. So like I think I mentioned it before. I'm pretty sure it was live, where like I'm kind of hyper focused to the point where I'm missing a lot of shit on the side. I'm trying to catch Matthew saying something or doing something where I'm not actually getting the whole story. I'm paying attention to this detail instead of all these other 17 that are laid out. And that's usually what happens on the second or third watch through. You're just like, you relax that, and then you're like, oh shit, they did say that. Like right now, there's so many names, and I'm relying on you for this, because there's so many names. There's NPCs, there's places, all the different spires.
Good.
I don't have that shit right now.
I'm like 75% on that. That's even high. I'm probably about 60% on that shit. I'm just looking at my notes. I wrote down, I wanted to bring this up today because this is the same point. This is the railroading point. I wrote down this, I wrote it down, and then I saw what I wrote and I started laughing at myself. So, really quick little sidebar. We have not talked about this yet, but we should right now. The name Bell's Hells.
Oh yeah. It didn't come up last time.
We should talk about that. It didn't come up last time. We both talked about it. We should really talk about it. You and I, that's right. We've talked about it, but not here. So I think I'm still, as soon as I heard it, I loved it. I'm like, I love it. I know I'm in a minority on that, because most of the stuff I read on socials is like, nope, don't like it. Man, some people are like it, but excuse me, I would say the majority of people do not like it. They're just not into it. So there was so much
anticipation. Is that the right word I'm looking for? Like the bar was set high. It's like, all right, Vox Machina was set in stone already, and then you got Mighty Nine, and that's when most people became fans of the show, was Mighty Nine. Yes. The names have been established. You didn't have to question it. You weren't there for the creation of it. You didn't see how it became. Mm-hmm. And in this one, you're like, oh, I get to see whatever this name's going to become, and they're a part of it now. And then somebody chooses Bell's Hells, and then they're like, oh, well, that's lackluster. It's like, well, it's just a name, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. It's not, but I really like it. I think it's fun. It's a little bit of an homage to Sir Bertrand Bell. It is very much. It's very heavy. The Hellion part, the Hells, I like it. I think it's clever. It's also it's rock and roll for me. It's AC/DC. So there's a little bit of that. When I hear it, I instantly get the guitar riff for Hell's Bells. That's what I hear.
I didn't make that reference. I didn't get that connection until you said it. Yeah,
right away. I was like, it's just, for me, every time I hear it, it's just that it's Hell's Bells. That's what I hear, and I'm like, Bell's Hells. It's great. So anyway, back to my original point. Sorry, I wrote down.
I've already countered it.
Bell's Hells. So
I countered it.
I did. Yeah. Well, that's the point. So I wrote down BH, Bell's Hells. BH leaving for a week. Matt wants to finish this arc first. So GS RR BH to BBEG. That's what I wrote down. And then I looked at what I did and I was like, the fuck did you just write? It's funny, on my piece of paper, I was running out of space. So I just started abbreviating everything. So I wrote down BH, which is Bell's Hells, leaving for a week. Matt wants to finish this arc first, comma. So GS, Green Seekers, RRBH, Railroads, Bell's Hells, 2, BBEG, Big Bad Evil Guy. It's like, I started laughing at myself. I'm like, holy fuck, Ben. The ADD was hard there. Yeah, or the OCD, whatever the fuck it is. I don't know.
When you forget about communicating with yourself, just be like, it'll be fine. I'll get it later. Like,
it'll be fine. I'll get it later. But it was like GSRRBH2 BBEG.
It's like written in a dream journal, when they have that high school assignment. You're like, what the fuck is this?
Stupid. What did I write? But again, like that's the whole point. I think that Matt wanted them to finish. So he's giving them their first mini boss. Then I think we'll get to that in a minute, but I think that this is the very first, this is 15 episodes. It'll be 16, 17-ish by the time they get finished with this one. I definitely think this is their first BBEG. This is the big one, the first big one. Level 4, level 5?
Yeah.
Level 5. Level 5. They have 2 attacks, so level 5.
Yep, level 5. Yeah, there were some Bloodborne vibes as far, I don't know if you're familiar at all, but maybe some viewers might be, as far as the in the battle, like the big ass fucking slug thing across there. It's like, all right. I mean, it reminded me of Bloodborne, so I'm just like, yeah, that's some pretty end game or like big arc type of stuff.
Yep.
And
well, listen, should we do rollies for this one?
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I hear you.
The big arc kind of thing. And let me give you an unpopular opinion, or maybe popular. I don't know. We can find out.
Go.
I want someone to die.
We've talked about this for a while. I do too. I do. I want
someone to die. I want it to. Yep. It doesn't matter which one. Like, take a pick. I don't want it to be Travis again.
Yeah,
Travis's character.
He's had his.
And he's also he's a lycanthrope now. It's like, he doesn't want that either. Yeah. But if somebody dies, they don't know. This one's not scripted. Whereas Travis's were.
Have they talked about? I just realized something I was not paying attention to. Have they talked about the lycanthrope regeneration yet?
I don't think I've seen it.
I haven't heard anything about it. So quick little sidebar to those of you watching, if there's anyone watching at this point.
It'd be homebrew.
Might be a
little too OP with the blood hunter thing. Using his skills and then getting it right back his next turn.
Maybe that's interesting. That's an interesting thought too. No, I was just gonna say, like, little bit of a sidebar on this one. Tim came down to Kaohsiung last weekend and played his very first session of D&D with us, and sat down at the table and played a lycanthrope. So you were regenerating hit points at the beginning of your turn. So I'm curious if
felt unstoppable at that level, or at that in that battle.
Oh, absolutely. You were meant to be. It was supposed to. There's a reason why there's so many lycanthropes in this world. It's a bit of in that world over there, not the Critical Role world. For those that don't know, we're playing Curse of Strahd, and there are lots of lycanthropes. But yeah, there's a reason why. Like the Were-Raven that you played was supposed to be unstoppable. They all are.
Right.
They're hard to kill. Huh. But anyway, sorry. My point was that we haven't seen Travis regenerate, and you might be right. It might be because of the Blood Hunter class. I feel like I'm gonna have to do some digging on that one.
He might be regenerating, just not saying anything, I mean,
mental note, writing things down.
Hey, there you go. Abbreviate everything, just the first or second letter of each word.
First and last letter of every word.
Yeah. First or second letter and the last letter. So 2 letters per word. It's a pretty good puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah, mental note. Done. Not a mental note. I wrote it down. It's not a mental note at all, dummy. Yeah.
Well, it's all a mental note at some point. He might be regenerating.
He might
just
be.
not saying
I don't know.
anything, you know. And like Matthew, usually if it's an
Yeah.
enemy, they'll be like, and you notice that this thing,
Had
but
some
like
of his
maybe
wounds
there's been
heal.
some
Yeah.
enemies that are regenerating that he didn't
Ooh,
say
there
anything
was a
about, just didn't want him to
there was
know.
one of the shade creepers that did a thing that I wrote down about that freaked me the fuck out. Where did I write? I'll get to that in a bit. I don't know. Ugh. Okay, shall we do rollies again, or is it your turn? I forget.
No, I think it's Rolly's time.
Okay, let's do
And of
rollies.
course I'm gonna win, I mean, because I always do.
Well, it's tied 1-1 now.
Well, I got 17.
Ah,
Come on, man. I'm
and
killing
11.
it.
It's yours. It's yours.
All right, I'm going straight from the top. Travis is our laugh track. He represents
He
the viewer.
certainly is. Yes.
At 3750 was or just after that was the moment where Matthew's describing the hard tunnels.
Oh yeah.
At which point, like Travis is like, he's like, "Oh, come on!" Like, that was my response because he's sitting there just staring at Laura, and like hard tunnels doesn't mean anything, but hard does, and tunnels can.
Yep.
You know, but he's like hard, and then like he just looks at her and he says tunnels. And Travis just loses it. Like, you just threw it. Come on, that wasn't even like hidden at all.
Yeah.
Marisha says
No.
he just gave up at the end, you know, and Laura just immediately her head goes down.
Puts her head down. Oh, exactly. It's that whole curve to the left sort of thing. As soon as he says curve to the left, he always looks at Laura.
Yep,
it's
anything
always
with a shaft, you know.
anything that's any sexual innuendo at all. I love it. I love it. It's so good.
It's not so prevalent in this campaign. I mean, like, there's another point I got about that too, a little bit. But yeah, but like Travis is us. You know, he's in the show, and I feel like he's representing the viewer quite well. He's sitting back there laughing. He's making jokes and stuff. You know, kind of out of character a little bit.
We've talked about this before. Laura is one of the best actors at that table, and she is not playing a silly character this campaign. Laura is a silly person. We know that. But she's not playing a silly character. So there are moments when she is not the instigator because she is playing a serious character. Imogen is a slightly broken. She's almost playing the Caleb role this Caleb role this campaign.
If you could maybe draw a parallel, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
She's broken. She's like, you know, the whole problem with her parents and the dreams and all of that. There are serious problems. And she is not a very jovial character, which is the 180 from Jester from last campaign, which was also a 180 from Vex from campaign 1. So it's fun. It is interesting, and it is funny to see Travis, because I'd love to see their day-to-day, there be a fly on the wall in their household and watch their dynamic together at home, because I think that's where you're coming from on this. I think that what's happening is that Travis lives with Laura and recognizes the silliness, but Laura is trying to stay in character, isn't reacting to it as much as she would previously. And so Travis is, because they live together, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, it makes me laugh every time I think about it. Just like just Travis's response to those fucking things. And I've got another point about something kind of similar too. I'm pretty front heavy on this one because you know me and the RP. I don't have a lot to say about the battle. But...
I do. I got a bunch to say about the battle.
Right. But maybe I'll stay front heavy and you go back heavy.
Sure. I'll throw mine out there then as another sort of a fun thing to watch that was really, really entertaining. And Liam summed it up best when he said, "It's how entertaining is it to watch Matt drag Matt?" Yeah. That the whole Gus versus Ogda's conversation that was happening, the awkward relationship thing that was happening was just what a weird thing for Matt to do, because he clearly wrote it in there and he clearly wanted it to be a thing. And I was sitting there just sort of taken aback. I'm like, wow, you're playing two NPCs who have a serious problem with each other, and you're putting it on stage for the entire cast to watch, and us as well. Like, I wrote this down. I'm like, this is the Matt Mercer effect that we all should be paying attention to. Hey, nice.
I got
Good
it.
job.
Yeah.
Nice one. This is the Matt Mercer effect that we should be paying attention to, is how to be a really good DM. Don't be afraid to have your NPCs talk to each other. It can be really, really uncomfortable. It clearly was
super entertaining, like this one was.
Exactly. So I'm sort of going to take a note for that in this campaign that I'm running and be like, I'm going to have my NPCs. I'm going to try. I don't have the voice acting chops at all, but I'm going to try and have my NPCs talk to each other every once in a while. It's tough, but I'm not going to be afraid to try. I'm going to actually try and make it a thing.
There's a lot to think about there, because when you have two different characters, when you're Matthew Mercer, he doesn't say, and then Gus says. No, he just goes into Gus's voice, and then goes into Ollie's voice. Or I know it was Gus and someone else. What was the other person's name?
Ogdus.
Ogdus. Okay,
Ogdus Freeze.
Fucking names, dude.
The names. I write them down. That's the only reason. Listen, we've talked about this. I watch things with closed captioning for this reason, because as soon as I see a name, I'm like, pause, write it down. Ogdus Freeze, and then exactly. Yeah.
Then you're with a half a page. This guy's got a book.
Yep. Well, it's the thing. Like Ogdus Freeze was a half elf, and Gus is the half orc. So it's like, well, this is weird. Gnome. Like, and Ollie is the gnome. But I thought it was a really interesting choice to have a half orc within a relationship with a half elf. I'm like, what does that even mean? For it's just a weird one, like. If we're talking about, let's get deep in the weeds here, talking about traditional gender roles, things start getting really weird in fantasy when this stuff starts happening.
Yeah. In campaign one, though, people look at Keyleth goes in. She's like, good day. And she's, for some reason, that's what she chooses to say. And that's where bidet came from. I didn't realize that until I rewatched it this third time. That's where bidet from the live show.
Right. And then
good day. He's like,
bidet.
Yeah, and they just look at him funny. They were looking at Keyleth a little strange. Like they would they eyed her, and then they kind of looked away when they noticed the half-bloodness of her.
Yes.
That was the first. And then she's like kind of hides her ears, and everyone's like, oh, that half thing. Yeah, maybe that's how they connected these two characters. Perhaps.
Sure, absolutely. There's a lot of racism in D&D. A lot. It's really written in there as in the front, as part of it. Yeah, sure. I like it.
Why not talk about it?
It gets exactly. It's something that we shouldn't be afraid to talk about. We definitely shouldn't condone it. But in my experience, the gaming table is a wonderful place to air things out and to really. It can get uncomfortable, but you're not being real about this. Obviously, you have to be careful with triggering people, and there has to be that honest discussion as well. But it's listen. If somebody is going to draw parallels with their own life and a fantasy setting, they probably shouldn't be interacting with other people at this moment anyway. They should be looking at therapy and really taking a deep look at their self, because if you're looking. If you're looking at like sitting down at a gaming table with a bunch of people and you've got problems with people being against orcs, for example. So in Exandria, orcs are very intelligent, and they're not like the Tolkien orcs where they're savages. They actually have societies, and they do things. They publish, they write, they have art, they have philosophy, all those things. But they are very much viewed as they're ostracized. They're outside of society. Hence, the half-orcs get a bad rep as well. So if somebody in real life is going to come in with drawing parallels with that and with their own life and fantasy life, I mean, man, maybe D&D is not for you. Maybe. So anyway, bottom line is I'm soapboxing here. I think that bringing up racism and other uncomfortable tropes is necessary, and it can be therapeutic in some ways.
There was a lot of discussion about that, like having the new setting, in this kind of like desert kind of area. They had lots of meetings and discussions,
Middle East and not India, Middle East and Eastern Asia, Western Asian, and these different things. They brought a whole bunch of consultants on and things to make sure that they don't delve into.
The intro song, like before the show starts, like on Twitch, you don't get to. Do you see it at the end on YouTube? I don't remember. You'll see it in the break, like for like a couple of minutes, right? Or hear it
Yeah.
rather.
Yeah.
But on Twitch, you'll see it for 15 minutes, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
has a very, like Middle Eastern kind of feel. That music, there's like the
Sure.
sitar
Sure.
elements to it, but it's still Critical Role. Other than that,
Yep.
there's like basically nothing except for the setting.
Except
And
for the setting.
it's very well done, because in my mind I'm picturing the setting, but these characters are this, but they're not. There's a word, not profiling. Is that the word I'm looking for?
That's the word you're looking for. It's profiling.
Yeah, because they're not racially profiling anything or anybody.
No, I think Matt gently introduces it with some of the monsters, the Simurgs, the flying things, and the other the setting. He and the especially in the Lucian Spire. Yes, the Lucian Spire where the rich people live. He evokes lots of images of pashas, how they would live in the Middle East and with their opulent gardens and peacocks and those kinds of settings, the mirror towers, those places. That to me really evoked not medieval setting. That was a Middle Eastern sort of medieval setting, like not the traditional Dark Ages in Europe, European medieval, but more flowing, these towers that sort of flow upwards, and they have grace and lines to them, curves and things. That's the imagery that's in my head anyway.
Sure, yeah. And you got Imogen coming in with like a Virginia accent, or was that FCG? I don't know. I don't really know the states apart from each other, but
I don't know. I don't know where that accent. They're very Southern. I feel like Imogen is Georgian and FCG is Virginia.
I think that because I know that
or
Sam
Kansas
is from Virginia.
Yeah,
I think that might be because he doesn't do accents, but he probably has that one because he's from there.
I feel like it maybe Kansas, maybe like a sort of a in that sort of it's the same
really
area, same belt.
I'm not really even from America. Doesn't really count. Alaska's
American North.
We just kind of watch from up there.
Hey, okay, so that was that your point? I don't even remember.
Rolly?
At this point. Might be. Sure, let's do rollies.
Yeah,
we're 2-1 for you now. I'm keeping track now.
Yeah, I'm gonna win again. Come on, man. I just have the luck on me. That's a cool 9.
I got a 17.
Damn. All right.
Yep. It was cocked there for a second and then it clicked over. It's the first time I've ever had a cocked dice on that.
Rigged.
This big one. Might be. This big dice, this 35 mil dice is for 35 millimeter dice is hard to cock because it's big.
I've never seen my dice where they have that flat point where you could really cock that dice.
Yeah, yours are really neat. They've got that right. It's weird. Yeah, those Critical Role dice are very
point
cool.
They've shaved off. Not the 20, but all the other ones.
Listen, I'm gonna skip a bunch of points that I had about FCG being a therapist. I'm gonna go straight to combat because as they went down, they're riding down the elevator. This is problem number 2 that I have with this episode.
Oh boy, here we go.
Well, this one's really technical, and it has wide-reaching repercussions. As they're going down the elevator and they reach the bottom, the first thing Imogen does is cast dancing lights, and I love the flavor of her dancing lights. They're purple lightning, arcing lightning that sort of gives off, say, it's just a flavor thing. She casts the first thing she does. Now, why does I'll ask you this? Why is she casting dancing lights?
Oh, you're asking me.
I'm asking you.
Oh, yeah. Me. Why is she casting dancing lights? When she cast dancing lights, the first thing I thought was fairy fire, but that's not the same spell.
No, dancing lights it's a lantern. They're floating lanterns.
Right.
So they can see.
Right. So they can see.
They're in the dark.
I mean,
the only one in their party that has dark vision is Chetney. Nobody else can see in the dark. The half-orc Gus can, the gnome Ollie can, but the only member of Bell's Hells that has dark vision is Chetney. And I didn't realize this until that point. I was sort of, she's cast dancing lights before, but I was like, oh, they're going into a dungeon here. Like, this is the first time they've really gone into a dungeon. She's cast the spell before and flavored it, and I really liked it. But I suddenly realized, I'm like, oh, holy shit. Fern doesn't have dark vision. Satyr doesn't have dark vision. Earth Genasi is Ashton, doesn't have dark vision. Orem is a halfling, doesn't have dark vision. Imogen and Laudna are humans. Well, Laudna is human light, but they don't have what are they called? Imogen is a human, and she definitely doesn't. And Laudna is a, God damn it, what is that subrace of human called? The half undead. Come on, brain. Whatever, I'll remember later. They don't have dark vision. Nobody in the party has it except for Chetney because he's a gnome. Yeah.
We don't know what it is, so that's your job. I'm not pointing at you, Ben.
It's them, yeah. So here's my point. Here's my point. They cast it. They do. Chetney goes down and investigates a little bit. They come to a fork in the thing. They both go on different sides, and then they realize there are dozens, potentially multiples. I think he says 15 shade creepers running at them.
It's a lot. It's trouble.
It's a lot. It's big trouble. And if it wasn't for that fireball that Gus throws, they would have a lot of trouble. But so he takes out a bunch, and then a bunch more show up. What does Imogen then do? She then casts one of the coolest spells that I've seen, the coolest homebrew spells that I've seen so far this campaign, the Seething Storm, which is
the flavor on that was beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous. So do you know what that spell is skinned from? What the original spell is?
No. Makes it rough
as
terrain. It's spirit guardians?
It's rough terrain, difficult terrain. It's not spirit guardians. It's reskinned. So Aberrant Mind sorcerer gets Hunger of Hadar. Do you remember Travis casting that as Ford in campaign 2? The tentacles come up and magical darkness. So I had to write all this down. So the Hunger of Hadar is blinded, difficult terrain, cold damage at the beginning of your turn, and then acid damage from tentacles that hit you at the end of your turn.
You're stupid enough to stay.
She reflavored it as a blinded from the lightning, difficult terrain from the winds, and then lightning damage from the lightning at the beginning of the turn, and force damage from the winds at the end of your turn. The problem is, it's concentration.
What did she do? The
dancing lights are gone. None of them can see, which is a huge problem because they, for the rest of the combat and for the rest of the entire thing, never talk about not being able to see.
That's a disadvantage for everything.
Yep. Everything. So suddenly, and Matt missed it too. He didn't say a single word about it. And it gets even weirder because they start talking about not being able to see later on. And it's like there's several more references that they talk about. I need to be able to see. I can't see. Oh yeah, I guess I'm going to have to cast Dancing Lights again. And then she does at the further on. She's like, oh yeah, I guess.
Oh, she does do it later again.
Yes, she does. She casts it again, and then it goes on, and then she's like, oh yeah, I guess I have to cast Dancing Lights.
I wonder if bells were going off in Matt's mind at that point.
I don't know, but it really really changed that combat with all of those shade creepers. Like it changed everything. Yeah. It completely changed the effectiveness of them. Orem was coming around and Ashton was taking them out left, right, and center with no regard for not being able to see. It puts every single one of them at disadvantage if they can't see. So
I wonder if they could retcon it by being the thing that she cast emanated enough light for them to see in that little area.
Listen,
because if it's blinding them inside, maybe it's light enough outside.
If they do that, if they retcon that way, that's a really, really slippery slope forward.
Yeah.
Because suddenly, if it's a light spell as well as Hunger of Hadar, that's too OP. It's way too OP.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, more than a little bit. It's huge. There's a reason why Dancing Lights is concentration, because you can't cast other spells when you use it. You have to pick and choose. Somebody has to have a light source, and then you're able to cast concentration spells. or you have dancing lights, which is a concentration spell, and you can't cast
Yeah, to
concentration
have
spells.
something
This
sit there
was
that does that much, and you can it lights
exactly,
the place up. Yeah,
exactly,
that's too
exactly.
much, man.
They've gamed again. These guys have gamed this out. They know exactly why dancing lights is a concentration spell for a reason. These other spells, they use concentration in D&D as a mechanic that makes spells less powerful. If there
Right.
was no concentration mechanic, it'd be annihilation time. Everything would
Yeah.
just be amazing. It would be way too overpowered. It'd be a video game.
It'd be back to he who will not be named times, where
Right.
he's just trying to
Right.
do everything, and it's like, dude, you got 6 seconds, and like 3 of those spells are concentration.
Yep,
Take a break.
Exactly. Take a breath. Take a deep breath. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's my long-winded way of saying that I love it when they forget things, and I totally understand when they do. But this was a big one. This was a very big one.
So
I remember when Liam played Caleb, and he was very cognizant of that.
he was great at it. He was very good at it.
Really, really good at it. He threw himself heart and soul into that role. I hope going forward, if Imogen is going to keep casting dancing lights with the way she does, that Laura becomes cognizant of what as well. I hope somebody has a conversation with her, and I hope they really discuss it. What I'm really hoping for is that at the beginning of this, at the beginning of episode 16, as they have this big boss fight, maybe they have the big boss fight, I don't know, that Laura is going to recognize the mistake and be like, okay, and I have to cast dancing lights, so I can't do concentration spells. I don't know.
I hope so.
Whatever.
It probably come up, if not from probably from
so.
Liam, if anybody, you know. See, this show's for me, everybody. This is not for you. This is for me. Because now what I get to do is when I go back and listen to it, I get to listen for this, and I'd be like, oh, yeah, how many turns? I get to count on my hands, like how many turns are fucked up because they're not at disadvantage, you know.
It's a lot of turns. Like Ashton, I believe Ashton gets a couple of kills in, and I think FCG does. And right, FCG doesn't have dark vision either. I think that was one I missed. They get a bunch of kills in. I don't have any problem with Gus and Ollie doing it because half orcs and gnomes have dark vision. They can do whatever the fuck they want. I have no problem with that. But the humans and the robot and the Earth Genasi and the whatever, what the fuck is Laudna? God damn it. Whatever. I remember. And the halflings don't get dark vision. Like these are important things that they gamed in there for a reason. So
damn, that's a big one.
I wasn't upset, but it really shifted the battle. And I'm kind of surprised. Matt had a lot of stuff going on. Remember, he did that thing when Matt even said, I don't know if you remember this or not, but when Imogen first casts the Seething Storm, he asks her to make a roll for it, and she rolls a natural 1. And then there's this whole discussion about what that even means. And then he retcons himself. He's like, no, wait, that's my fault. This isn't fireball. This is an area spell. Yeah. So it goes into this thing. He was thinking that it was like fireball, where you'd have to sort of aim it to a spot. And that was the whole point for that. So I think Matt had a whole bunch of other things going on in his head and just wasn't even really paying attention that, wait a minute, this is a concentration spell. Laura can't do this, or Imogen can't do this, because then she can, but then nobody is going to be able to see, which means that everybody, there's 2-3 fighters in there, they can't attack. Every attack they do is at disadvantage. Anyway, big. Hey man, I'm done. I'm not gonna harp on it because I've harped on it enough.
in your own mind. Yeah, without the thinking about Mighty Nine now. It was just the humans, wasn't it, that didn't have dark vision?
It was Caleb and Caduceus.
Caduceus also didn't.
Furbolgs don't have dark vision. Jester as a tiefling does.
Half orc, yeah.
Well, not as a goblin did, but Veth as a halfling didn't. Half orc as Ford did. Bo as a human didn't. So there was half the party didn't have. Ashley as a Asimar does have dark vision.
Yeah, so it's basically just those humans, yeah.
and Veth, the halfling,
And Veth eventually, yeah.
and Caduceus and the furball.
And Caduceus, yeah.
Right.
So half the party.
So about half the party. In this case, it's only one. Only one in the party has dark vision, and that's Chetney as a gnome. Yeah, it's crazy.
Huh.
I know. I didn't really realize until that point either. I was like, holy shit. This is going to make things. It's going to make things very, very interesting. Well, I mean, hey, here's the thing. Bo got around that, right, in campaign 2 with those goggles. So this will be an interesting thing that if they do get magic items that give them dark vision, might be a thing that a couple of them are going to have to get. Yeah. Especially if Orm's going to play this halfling fighter with dark vision goggles. Ooh, oh boy, that's going to be tough to deal with.
Which we kind of saw by accident this last episode. It's like, oh, what? I can see everywhere? Shit. Yeah, well, that's interesting. Really, like moving forward.
It really changes the dynamic. It really changes everything, yeah.
Yeah, moving forward, they'd be like, going to a dungeon crawl? They're like, I don't know, man. Like, we can't see anything. What would we be able to do? Right. Be like, well, Imogen just stands over there and concentrates, and then you guys do some shit. Well,
Imogen, listen, like, Laudna could do it, right? Laudna, in my mind, is the perfect candidate for that because she is a spell sniper. She's a warlock sorcerer. She's going to be pretty much, she's got low hit points, not a high AC. She's going to be sitting, I mean, she did in this episode. She stayed back and it didn't work. She rolled terribly.
Yeah, she's doing terrible with her.
If those rolls, if her Eldritch Blast if she had rolled well, she would have obliterated. Just wouldn't have been like, those Shade Creepers would have been like popcorn. Pop, 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 pop. It was such a wonderful idea that was just the dice didn't allow it. So and those aren't concentration. None of that. Almost everything that Laudna is going to cast is not concentration. There will be a few warlock spells later on, but there won't be that many. And she's going to go, I think she's going to stay away from sorcerer for a bit. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong on that. We'll see. But if she does, wherever she decides to go, there won't be a lot of concentration. So she could maintain light for everybody. And then Imogen, that frees Imogen up to do other things, other concentration spells like her seething.
Hard to imagine what kind of light spells she would have. Like, probably not daylight. I mean, just given her class.
It would just be light or dancing lights. Those are really the only two.
They'll be like, all right, my turn. Here's some light, guys. Go ahead. All right.
So
Imogen,
level.
Can I get a knack in? All right.
I think it's level 6. Maybe level 7, they get another cantrip. She might take dancing lights or something to make that so that they can. There might be a way to get. They will going forward. They might figure this out. I hope they do.
Hopefully, that's the hope that they'll see it and then just sweep it under the rug or retcon somehow. It's always hard to say how to do it, but as they always say, like in campaign 2, also they're like, it's a home game. Sometimes we fuck up. Sometimes we change things. Sometimes we adjust things. Like I think that's Matt responding to.
I might be wrong on this. I'm gonna do a quick little thing is here and check it out. It's your turn. Go ahead. I want to look up because I wrote down that Laudna cans. I didn't write Laudna down in this, so I want to take a quick little hollow one. That's what they are.
Hollow one.
So hey, it's your turn. I rolled a 17. You rolled whatever you rolled. So. You do your thing.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think just in our last episode, I'm getting confused with our last episode with you and me just hanging out the other week.
Sure.
But how you never see Matthew kind of second guess or say, I don't know this. I don't remember if that was a conversation in my head or with you or on cast or not. But you do see it in this episode. When not even Imogen, it was just Laura. Be like, what's the name of the book?
Oh, like, yeah. That was a wonderful moment. I love that.
I think it was the second time she asked, because the first time she asked, she was like, oh, that was just Laura asking, sorry. And I think he actually came out with later. Yeah. Oh yeah, because he passed out because of a natural 20 on her part or a natural 1 or something.
Shoten Bruo with his book that he wrote. Oh, yeah. God, that was a funny moment.
And I'm pretty sure that Matthew just made it up that he was writing it because that's what Matthew seems to do. They're like, oh, they're actually writing this book. Do you want to check it out? It's kind of like Matthew and the squeaky door. Every door is going to be squeaky. Anytime somebody goes to the back room, they're going to knock something over and they're going to go, because that's just what Matthew does. And then if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's reading a book that he doesn't want to give you the title to, they're writing it. That's like the new thing that Matthew does. But the name of it, and you can see on Matt's face, she's like, "Oh, I run over and get the book," And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah, it's a poorly written thing about this and this and this." She's like, "What's the name of it?" And you can see it on his face. He's like, what was it? Something World Explorers or something. What was it? Seafaring.
World Seekers, the world of, oh yeah, what was it called? It was something
Seafaring
ridiculous.
World Explorers or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Because it was just based on what he said. He's like, it's about people on a boat exploring the world, trying to find themselves in the world. Like, what's it called? Like, seafaring people exploring.
World
stuff.
Explorers. Yeah.
Yeah. So one time you see him just like, instead of being like, oh, it's called this, he's just like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Like, why this book? Who gives a shit? It's a book.
Exactly.
It's kind of fun to see. He is human,
Yes. Yeah, very much.
And everybody's there. It's just like, Laura, what do you, like, they all know what they're doing. They did it to Matthew all the time. Like, what's your name?
100%.
Jeff. Like, not
Jeff,
every name's
exactly.
fantastical, Nothing wrong with Jeffs out there.
Again, this is the thing we should be focusing on is they're like, yes, they're awesome, but they are still just people.
Yeah.
And we can love that part, right? Yeah.
It goes with everybody. It's a human. They might be phenomenal at something, but they're still a goddamn person.
All right, shall we do one more rollies and then maybe it's getting on later here. We got
it's over an hour here. We don't
about.
have any Vox Machina to talk or a Legend of Vox Machina to bring up.
No.
And I gotta pee pretty soon too.
Okay, let's do a little last rollies and then call it for tonight.
Sounds good to me.
I got a couple more things to say, but that's about it.
I got a 14. I'm rolling pretty good today.
Natural one.
All right. That means I get 2 questions.
Is that how that works? Did I fail 2 death saving throws? Is that what just happened?
I think so. I think it just means I'm a better person.
Okay.
But just ask my mom. She'll figure it out for us.
Yeah, moms are good that way.
Yeah, on my side anyway. It's kind of hard to decide here. Like 2 of them are just like kind of nothing little things. One of them is just a compliment for Ashley. The other one is just if you caught something. The other one, I guess I'll do this one since it's more relevant. FCG doesn't like birds. And
I know. I wrote that down too. That was a fun one.
It was.
I really liked that.
And there was a little bit of a touchy, tingly, like, well, is this a thing or is this just improv? Just like, I guess I don't like birds.
Yeah.
And Chetney, not Travis, said, like, is there a reason? And then he's like, there's a reason. Kind of quietly in the back. He's like, there's a reason. Like,
he full on. He was just like, yep.
Yeah, there's definitely a reason. Yep. And then, so I'm sitting there just like, a reason that he would be like, and they're like, did they peck at you or something? And it's like the scarecrow or something in fucking that color movie, Wizard of Oz.
All right. Okay.
That color movie. You remember that one? And
sure.
Like that's a little tropey.
Black and white and then goes color. Yeah.
I happened to see when I was watching this when I was at the gym because I had to have it turned this way when I was on the elliptical thing. Or sorry, on the bicycle at that point. I saw that I can see the chat and the thing, and then somebody wrote in all caps because fucking people do that sometimes. It was interesting. They said FCG wants to fly. So he doesn't like birds. They're just kind of annoying, is what he said, or what they said, I should say. And then like, maybe he just like really wants to fly. He's just never really done it, and he's always glued to the floor. It's kind of hard for him to get upstairs and shit. I was like, well, yeah, maybe that's interesting. What do you think? Bullshit, bollocks.
I would say that's a little bit of a stretch. I think one of the things that happens when you create characters is there's a table where you choose phobias, and it just happens to be one of them. Yeah. That's what I think. Probably. I think that he
did have a reason for it too,
Oh, of course. So I think that he just looked at it and was like, I don't like birds. Okay, why? Oh, because of this. And then he hasn't told us yet.
It's a pretty familiar phobia. She doing okay over there?
Weird. Yeah, she just started freaking out on the sofa. I'm like, you okay?
She having a dream?
Yeah, it's all right. No, she's awake. She's just standing up, and I don't know what she's doing. Dogs, man.
She might have to pee more than I do.
Yeah, it's getting on that time, actually. Yeah. She's coming over to say hi.
I can see on Zoom, but not on the stream, that Luna's just been over there licking her crotch the entire time.
Staring. Yeah. Yep. That's what cats do.
Yep. The one, yeah. When they know they're on the internet, they just go nuts on the junk. Yeah. Yeah, tiny little thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
I
I don't
figured it
know.
was
Like, I think
probably. Go ahead.
no, I think it's one of those things. I think it's one of the things where it's just
Just a
I'm
little
afraid
thing.
of birds, and there's a reason why I had a traumatic experience. It reminded me a little bit of the Italian Job. Remember that was my very first thought. Remember the Italian Job remake with Mark Wahlberg and Jason Statham, and there's a one of
I
the
don't think I saw
don't
it, but
remember
I know what you're talking about.
I don't remember the character's name, but he full on says he's like, "Oh man, they've got dogs," and they're like, "What's wrong with dogs?" "I don't like dogs." "Why don't you like dogs?" "I don't like dogs. I've got a problem with dogs." There's this whole dialogue that they have. He doesn't say why, but he just says I got a problem with dogs. What's wrong with you? You don't listen? It's like that. There's this whole thing, and that immediately reminded me. I'm butchering the lines, but
Somebody's a D&D player on that writing
there's
staff.
there's this whole thing where this whole dynamic, and that's what it originally reminded me of. I was like, okay, all right, doesn't like birds.
Yeah,
Who
choose
knows
something
why?
that you don't like. Yeah, it makes the character I think Matt talks about it. I'm sure lots of other
Phobias.
people talk about it. Just fills out the character, whether or not you know
Yeah,
it or not. It's like, oh, birds come
absolutely.
up, be like, ugh, stay away. You're like, what? What's going on here? It's just nice RP. Flushes out a character. What do you got?
My last one at 4 hours 41 minutes. Travis, as Matt is described, this is the very last cavern, as Matt is describing this fucking slug, that sort of 60-foot long slug going across this thing where there's a body coming out with 15-foot long arms, and this coming out with black void like eyes and jagged teeth, and basically a thing of nightmares. Travis
Sounded
sort
like
of
the
goes,
Nightmare King, really.
yeah, there's a lot of face stuff going on here. I don't know what any of it means. But Travis in the background, as Matt's describing it, goes, "It's totally aliens." And Matt looks like snaps over to it and goes,
really?
"Finding," and he says, "Finding my inspiration for this yet?" to Travis. And I'm like, oh,
Oh, really?
So full on. And then
Give me that timestamp again.
441 on Twitch. 441
On Twitch.
20 seconds is what I wrote down, but it's about that. It's like 441:00. It happens shortly after that. Then what happens? I didn't write this down. There's a bunch of alien and aliens, actually more aliens, I think. The number 2, the references with Hudson and a bunch of running out of ammo. There's the who's the guy from what's the actor's name? I don't know. I'm terrible with names. The actor that panics and he starts running around. They're in the walls, man. They're in the walls. That's aliens. He's like he starts freaking out, and really famous actor. Don't remember his name. Terrible with names. As soon as I saw him, I'd seen him. But aliens, man, it's like we're classic. How have you not seen Aliens?
Oh, just because it's a classic. It's like the Taiwanese thing.
Done.
They're famous.
I'm out. I just rolled another natural 1.
Let's see what I would get.
I threw my dice on the table in disgust, and I rolled a natural 1. No, I'm done, man. I'm out.
That
I'm
means
not
my mom
ever
thinks
again.
I'm cooler than you.
Perhaps. Yeah, but there was a real, so like I was actually thinking it. I'm like, well, even when they went down into the tunnels and they're talking about like all the little shade creepers and they're climbing on the walls, and I was like, this is alien. This is like, these are aliens. These are fucking
walls, man.
Like they were climbing around on the walls and doing that. I was like, this is aliens. Like, this is really what they're doing. And then Travis is like, yeah, it's totally aliens. And Matt says, yeah, finding my inspiration for this. Like, that's, yeah.
I guess
it's a great little moment. Then they have a bunch of alien references. And then Matt's like, and that's where we're going to end. And we'll see you next Thursday.
Someone's going to die.
Yep.
Someone's going to die.
Listen, man, they're a little tapped out. They did do that aura vitality spell that FCG cast at the in between at the end of the combat for 20 D6 of healing. Fuck me. They at least
target,
Matt,
but you get to choose the target.
Yeah, well, it's 1 target per turn for 10 turns.
Right.
2d6 per turn for 10 turns. And I love how both there's a funny little moment. I love how both Taliesin and Laura were like, wait, that's a cleric spell. Why didn't we choose that one? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, yeah, why didn't they choose it? And then I looked it up, and it's a paladin only spell. And Matt clarifies that. He's like, it's a paladin spell, but you have access to it for reasons. FCG has, I don't know even know what that means. He said it on stream. He's like, you have access to that spell. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's an interesting little sidebar. But there is another little sidebar to that. Sidebar is that it isn't only a paladin spell. In last year, so this is after the Mighty Nine, last year, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything came out. And in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, that source book, they made Aura of Vitality available to all clerics. At the DM, of course, at the DM's discretion, and at the, that's the conversation that DMs and players have. But I only know this because I read through it, and I'm like, oh, that's where that comes from. And I'm like, oh, fuck, clerics have access to that. That's way too overpowered. As a cleric spell, it's way too overpowered because it's a 3rd level spell that basically is comparable to heal, which is a 5th level spell. So it's way too overpowered for a cleric. But it is not overpowered for a paladin because paladins really only get 3rd level spells, and they would almost never use it in combat. Right. Almost. It's very situational. Or
something like that.
The smite. The clerics, but paladins pretty much save all of their spell slots for smites. That's their bread and butter. So they would almost never use Aura of Vitality, which is why it should be a paladin spell and not a cleric spell, which is why Tasha's Cauldron of Everything kind of fucked it up by allowing clerics to have it. But whatever.
FCG is going to cast it if they have the slot. Well, like, oh, you're hurting? Okay, I can cast that for you, and then Sam will be like, I'm fucked for the next fight, by the way. And then FCG would be like, of course I'll heal you up. What do you need?
Well, I'm more interested in what Matt said about it's a paladin spell. That's why you have access to it. Or I'm more interested in the comment that he's like, what did he say? It's a paladin spell and you have access to paladin spells. I'm like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Does that mean that FCG is going to be able to smite soon? Yeah. Because that's going to get weird.
It seems a little weird for FCG too. Smite,
I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
It goes against it's odd that like, well, I guess I'm gonna smite you now. Smile a day.
It might have been Matt making reference to Tasha's because he was like, you have access to paladin spells, meaning you have access to that spell because that Tasha's made it a cleric spell now. That might be. I don't know.
Maybe it'll come out if we ever get a fucking talk show about it.
All right. That's my point. Let's wrap this up.
Okay. Quick thing. On my phone, I could not see Sam's mug, but I could see their reactions to it. Could you see?
Oh, dude, it was ridiculous. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
What was it? Can you spell it out real quick?
I didn't write it down, but I had to pause and come up to my big TV and like, oh shit, it's blurry. So I finally found the right frame where it was actually in HD and it wasn't blurry. It was for sale, one toy boat found levitating in the street, blah, blah, blah. It was about the toy boat that Chetney made for Dorian.
All right. Now I can go to sleep.
It was wanted.
Happy.
That's what it was. Wanted. One wooden toy boat. Last seen levitating through the streets of Dressar, something. Yeah. 50 gold piece reward or something like that. I don't remember. It was something silly.
Wanted. So what? Dorian wants it back? He's like, oh shit.
I don't know. I think there's a little bit of an in joke. I think that Robbie may have left it in the studio when he went back home.
Oh yeah. And then just
they
put it.
They
on
mentioned they sort of mentioned that. Well, at least somebody said, maybe Sam. Well, at least Dorian took it with him, and then the whole cast was like, ah ha ha ha. Or he says. I think Sam actually says the
episode started.
Yeah, I think Sam says, well, it's not like he forgot the toy boat. And they all laugh. Yeah. I think there was a little bit of Robbie went home and left the toy boat in the studio.
And yeah, that makes some sense, I suppose.
I think there's a little bit of
that's right.
Hey, buddy.
That
Hey,
would that
buddy.
would check out. That would check
Yeah.
out. 'Cause, Chetney's like, oh, well, actually, it has a thing where like it sends them
Yeah.
back to me if they die, so I can look at them before
Yes.
they die. And
Yeah.
then he says, because we know that he has it, and then everybody laughs.
hmm Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because that
Yeah.
makes more sense if he actually
It
left
does.
it in the studio.
I think that's what happened. That's an assumption, but it's sort of putting all the pieces together. It sort of felt like
That's
that.
like the best detective agency. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense that they would laugh at that. Instead,
Sure.
Yeah. All right, I gotta check
All
out
right,
that
bud.
bathroom back there. So you want to
Yeah.
call it?
Let's wrap this up.
All right, I got
Let's
nothing to
call it.
promote. No shows until like maybe April
Nor do I.
16th. So that's
Nothing, man. Nothing.
It's only a month away, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Other than that,
All right.
nothing to promote. Self, no.
Nope.
All right, well,
Nothing.
then you can call it right there. Everybody, get in touch with us. All the information's right down
Yep.
there. We're getting on the Twitters as well. Yeah, so there's
Yeah, we
couple
are. Yeah, we are.
yeah.
Eventually, I'll get around to it.
Yeah, it's all this newfangled internet stuff. So yeah, get in touch. If we are full of shit, we get something wrong, we get something right. Got any theories? Got any questions you want us to discuss? You think I need a haircut? Fucking put it in there right there. And don't forget to love each other. And is it finally Friday? Peace,
Take it
y'all.
easy, bro.
Take care, Ben.
You too.